and frankly, natural resource management along the front. We're going to try and follow some kind of a protocol just because there are so many people that might want an opportunity to be heard, and it's a sense of fairness, so I'm going to try and keep things moving. Randy is on the bell. We're going to be heavy on the bell. We're going to give everybody 2 minutes. He'll try and give a warning ahead of time. What do you get to that? 30 seconds or 15?
15 seconds.
15 seconds before the 2 minutes, so he's just going to do a little something so you know, kind of wrap it up. And that just is a courtesy to the rest of the people that are in the audience that are going to want to have an opportunity to say something. Please know that I'm about as wired as you could possibly be. I'm sitting here twittering. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, webpage, email, toll-free number. It's kind of interesting because I've got 8,000 friends on Facebook. Turns out they're not all friends. You can call yourself a lot of things. And so, yeah, get a hold of me. I've got comment cards. If you didn't get a chance to say something today, and there's something that hasn't been said that's really burning on your mind, please fill out the comment card. I've got your phone number. Email me a message. Get a hold of my phone. Randy, you stand up. Randy Vogel is my state director. Been with me since the beginning. He's a former Billings policeman. However, he's also a two-term Montana state legislator and a small businessman. Aaron, would you please stand up? Aaron staffs my Missoula region, north and south. She's going to be holding the mic. I'm going to ask the people line up along the brick wall over there for an opportunity to speak, and we'll take you as you come. And as you know, my names are come one, come all. They're not by invitation only. I have no idea who's in the audience. I'm getting a fairly good sense of who's sitting in the front row. But please, they will also give us an indication of how many speakers there are, and we're going to have to kind of pick it up. I always believe that these meetings ought to end the same day they start. So I'll try and keep things moving as well. Mike Waite, where are you? Mike's back on the door. Mike has been with me almost from the beginning as well. He's going to be taking notes so that I don't have to. I don't want to miss anything. We tape, we film, we take notes, just so I've got a record of what's on your mind. And so why don't we get started? Aaron, you want to take the first poke, and you guys kind of stay back there before you come up, just so the people who are sitting over in that section don't look at your backside of you for the entire meeting. I feel like Jeff Foxworthy if I'm sitting up on that stage, sitting here with the mic all by myself, so I decided to move down with y'all. So that's why I'm down here, and go ahead. If you would state your name, it would be helpful if you are representing an organization. Like if you said, I'm Cindy and I'm a county commissioner in Monterey County, that would be helpful. Or if you're with an organization, that would help me put in perspective who you are and what you're talking about. So,
my name is Kurt Dyer, and I'm a farmer from Brady over here, not too far away. I am a member of Backcountry Horsemen of Montana, past president of a local, state, and national organization. I would like to comment today on the good work that the coalition, I think, has done on representing what we would like to see on the Rocky Mountain front up here. The coalition has included a large number of people from this area, from all different directions and walks of life. I think it is a prime example of Montana people working together, whether our interests are the same or different. And the coalition has fought their way through that and has represented people from all different walks and different ends of the spectrum, so to speak. So I would like to congratulate the coalition on the work they've done on the Heritage Act. And I do support the Heritage Act as a representative of a combination of what the people of this area would like to see. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
My name's Joe Perry. I farm between Brady and Conrad. I am a member of the Coalition to Protect the Front. I'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity. I think I read an article from around 2006. Congressman Reberg said he wanted to see these sorts of efforts from the ground up, and this certainly is exactly that. I'm one of those horrible people that would just assume it was all wilderness, all 300,000 acres. That being said, that isn't the way we get things done these days, and I am in favor of the compromise that, the many compromises that we have made. My family has worked and played on the front for 75 years, and we can support this act. It's worthwhile, it's ground up, it's transparent, it's everything that I believe you asked for. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gene Sets, and I've been lucky enough to live here in Choteau and Teton County for the past 40 years. And every one of those 40 years I've worked and packed a string of mules, guided people through the mountains front up here, the Rocky Mountains front, the Baltimore. And I was thinking the day before yesterday, my wife and I were up in Sun Canyon taking a hike, and we drove through Augusta, and it said on the new sign down there, Augusta, gateway to the Baltimore Wilderness. When you drive into Choteau, it says, welcome to Choteau, gateway to the Rocky Mountain front. This area defines us. This land up here defines what we are. It represents the soul of Montana. This isn't just a piece of land up there. This is the best of the best. And that's what we're talking about here. And I'm a member of the coalition. We sat down and we formed this. Some of us wanted more wilderness. Some people wanted less. Some people wanted it all. Some people wanted none. We feel like it's a compromise. None of us are probably satisfied with every detail in this bill. But we can accept it, and we think it's a good bill. It's a conservative conservation bill, and I hope you'll support it, keep an open mind. At least, please don't stand in the way. Thank you.
Congressman Reberg, I'm Jane Weber, and I am a Cascade County Commissioner. I want to thank you for allowing us to speak to you today. I want to let you know that 2 of the county commissioners from Cascade County have already signed on in support of the Rocky Mountain Heritage Act and have submitted a letter to Senator Max Bobbins previously. Now, folks in the audience, I wonder why would Cascade County be interested in this act? It doesn't touch Cascade County. The lands are not contiguous to Cascade County, but it does touch Cascade County. We know for a fact that many of the travelers that come for the amenities in this area are coming through our Great Falls Airport. They are using our hotels, they are using our restaurants, they are hunting in this area, and they are coming and spending time when they arrive and when they depart. We are very encouraged by that because it helps the economy of Cascade County. The other thing is the amenities that are preserved and are protected into perpetuity also serve many residents in Cascade County who also like to hike and hunt and backpack. Our ranchers and our farmers are very concerned about weeds, and you know which direction the wind blows here. And so if the weeds are not taken care of in this neck of the woods, we're going to have problems in Cascade County. And so I'll close and say that we're happy for this Rocky Mountain Heritage Act, and we supported 2 commissioners from Cascade County strongly support this. Compromise is the way we come to decisions now. If we don't compromise, we cannot get even a piece of what both sides of the party want. So I encourage you to support this as we have in Cascade County.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Phil Lowberg, and I'm representing Families for Outdoor Recreation in our 1,800 members statewide. Senator Baucus has had a dozen or more meetings on the Heritage Act, and Families for Outdoor Recreation has not been invited to one meeting. We've requested to be notified when Senator Baucus and his proponents, but have never been told when and where the meetings were going to be held. We've also talked to several other outdoor organizations, and they have not been notified or invited either. We cannot understand why Senator Baucus and Senator Tester insist on trying to lock up our public lands and turn them into wilderness areas, conservation areas, monuments, or whatever it will that you that'll be controlled by the federal government. One of the federal definitions of wilderness is an area undeveloped federal land retaining its primeval character and influence without permanent and improvements of human habitation. In summary, this means no motorized vehicles, ATVs, bicycles, RVs, logging, mining, oil and gas exploration, grazing, buildings, or other structures in any commercial activities are strictly prohibited. This also means that local businesses are affected because if you can only walk in the woods, there is no possibility to pursue development of our natural resources, reasons to buy big boy toys, stay in motels, eat in restaurants, buy fuel, or spend money with the local retailers. This is a significant and state local economic impact. Wilderness has more restrictions than our national parks. If you read the Heritage Act, you will see that the areas that are under the jurisdiction of the Department of Agriculture or the Department of the Interior can be controlled and shut down by the Secretary of Agriculture and the Secretary of the Interior for any reason they see fit. This is too much power for anyone, whether Democrat or Republican. We wish to thank Denny for finally allowing us to voice our opinion publicly in this listening session. It's important to let everyone voice it be heard, and I applaud Denny for letting us do this. Unlike what Senator Baucus and Senator Tester have done regarding wilderness and conservation.
Thank you. And again, if you've got letters or testimony and you'd like to hand them to Randy at the table, please leave them there.
Thank you, Congressman Rehberg, for holding these meetings and having us the opportunity to talk about the wilderness. My name is Dave Galt. I'm the Executive Director of the Montana Petroleum Association. On behalf of our members, our Board of Directors, and the Northern Montana oil and gas producers who are here to oppose the Heritage Act. The federal government currently owns 30% of the surface in Montana, and the mineral state's even larger than that. Of that land that the federal government owns, 25% is currently off limits to any kind of development, and we think that's enough. There are those in our society that don't like oil and gas development, and we constantly see increased comments not to do our work adjacent to these kinds of lands. This constant scope creep just leads to additional regulations on federal land with the sole goal of stopping development and restricting access. I'd also like to ask that you consider Senate Joint Resolution 6 that was passed in the 2011 state legislature with overwhelming bipartisan support. It asks for several things. It asks for no more lands belonging to the federal government to be placed off limits. It also asks for review of those lands that are off limits, and it asks for cancellation of Secretarial Order 3310. Having said that, I just want you to know that the Montana Petroleum Association also supports your efforts on H.R. 1581 called the Mineral Release Act, or the Wilderness Release. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mark Salmon, fifth-generation rancher and permittee along the Rocky Mountain front, and our property actually butts up to this new wilderness proposal. The Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act claims it protects our ranching opportunities along the front for generations to come. The only protection it has is that grazing can't be eliminated because of wilderness designation. With wilderness designation, along with it comes increased scrutiny on our grazing of public land. Permittees may not be forced off these allotments, but through rules and regulations, it may become so burdensome and undesirable that these ranchers won't be able to operate in a productive manner. These allotments are what make some of these ranches viable operations. It states in the bill that grazing is subject to such regulations, policies, and practices as the Secretary of Agriculture or Interior determines appropriate. That's a lot of ranchers' livelihoods are resting on one person's opinion. This bill also does nothing to protect permittees from lawsuits brought on by environmental groups to stop grazing. How long before we're sued? It seems that the Endangered Species Act is the latest trump card to eliminate grazing on public lands. We need to take a realistic look at the economic impact here. These local counties and communities would take a heavy hit if these ranchers were pressured off these allotments and eventually sold out. These ranchers, permittees, and the livestock that they have are what pay a good portion of our property taxes in these local counties, which in turn support our communities, small town businesses, and local schools. So you can see we can't afford to lose our economic base, and these unintended consequences of this act would be devastating. To sum it up, I'd like to say these permittees and ranchers along the Rocky Mountain front have been here for 4, 5, and 6 generations, and history has shown that we must have done something right. Perhaps people should take notice of how well our landscape functions without conservation management areas and wilderness designation, and apply some of our values to their lives instead of trying to impose their values on us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been in your shoes. My name is Rick Hill, and as you know, I once was in your job. I want to thank you for having this open meeting, giving Montanans the opportunity to express their views about the future of the Rocky Mountain Front, because it's very important. So often proposals such as the Heritage Act claim to represent consensus. But we all know that sometimes that means consensus of those that were chosen to participate. Indeed, we've learned that too often it means that if you didn't have a seat at the table, it more than likely means that you're on the menu. And today you're going to hear from some people who I think feel that they were on that menu. You know, shortly after I was elected to the Congress, I hiked and camped with a wide-ranging group of people on the Rocky Mountain Front. There was environmentalists, there were natural resource development representatives, forest officials, local landowners, local government officials, and we sat around a campfire and we talked about the front. And there wasn't a lot of agreement, but there was some, and I want to tell you about some of the agreement. The first is that the Rocky Mountain Front is a special place with a lot of potential. 2, the front has experienced considerable resource development over the last century or more, including mining, grazing, timber, and oil and gas development. That during that period of time, wildlife populations flourished, increasing dramatically in numbers. The resource development had no recognizable adverse impact on any of that wildlife, and the reclamation of the development impacts was nearly indistinguishable from the natural habitat. So I pose a couple of questions. One, why do we need this law and why do we need it now? There's no present threat to these lands. Even the advocates acknowledge that it's a beautiful landscape, abundant wildlife, providing world-class hunting, and is an economic boon to the area. And second, if the law would have no impacts, then what is its purpose? Advocates again claim that there'll be no impacts on grazing or motorized access or hunting or carts or oil and gas development or wood gathering or firefighting. Why would you pass a bill that would have no purpose? What we're advocating for you is do an inventory of what the resources are here. And I think that the delegation should ask the legislature and the governor to sign off on any broad-scale changes in designations such as wilderness, such as conservation areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Randy, your 15-minute warning is a little quiet. You got the 2 minutes. Yeah. Give him a little more and start to wrap it up.
My name's Maggie Nutter. I live in the Sweetgrass Hills. I'm a 4th-generation rancher. I kind of look at this as one of those things. I don't know how many of you ever started out to do a good deed and had it turn bad. You recommended somebody for a job, really thought it would work, and then that person didn't show up, worked poorly or whatever. And you lost the respect of the person who hired that person, and you lost respect for the person you recommended. I kind of see the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act that way. I see it as something that people really believe in, and they think they're doing a good deed. I don't think they're out for any evil, right? But I think that in that, there's some things that aren't said or aren't pointed out that we're missing. My first issue is that the federal government currently owns 650 million acres of land in the United States. That's 30% of all land in the United States. That's an impressive amount. In the western United States, 1 out of every 2 acres is owned by the federal government. According to the Land Trust Alliance, another almost 40 million acres of land throughout the U.S. is controlled by land trusts held in conservation easement. The Nature Conservancy itself controls over 3 million acres in conservation easements. I understand that people want to save the Rocky Mountain Front, but how much land do we need to save? It's beautiful here already. You can say that farming or oil will hurt it. last summer, when I was cutting hay, I had elk down on my hay meadow. I had to move the swath. I'm sure the guy bailing behind me was wondering what I was up to. I had to zigzag to get out of the elk's way. They wouldn't move for me. Well, I just don't think that my farming and ranching is affecting them as much as their eating is affecting me. My next concern is section 3. It says acquired land. They're talking about acquiring more land for this. It's not just stopping here. They talk about acquiring more land. Every piece of land that's acquired is a young farmer or rancher not able to start a job. It's a business that's lost. It's a person who moves away.
If you want to leave your testimony with Randy. Thank you.
I'm Stony Burke. I'm speaking as an individual, and I'm speaking for the Coalition to Protect the Rocky Mountain Front. Thank you, Congressman Reberg, for listening to us today. I want to start out individually. Just so all of you know, I am currently an attorney, but I grew up in a logging camp. I sawed logs, paid my way through law school, or through college and law school, ultimately, falling timber. I was a fighter pilot. I've flown 2 combat missions in Vietnam, 252 combat missions in Vietnam. And I love the wild country. And I believe it's a treasure for us and for our future generations. And that's our duty. We have a public trust to take care of this land for future generations too. And I would ask you to consider some of the things that are said here. We have a tendency to always look at it from our perspective, me. But remember, we have a duty to protect this land for our future too. Now, the Rocky Mountain Front has been 5 years in the making, this act. We started with a coalition of about 6 people, and we've expanded this. And there's been claims that it's not diverse. You can see from this crowd that it is. Congressman Reberg, I gave you a letter a year ago from 15 different people from all over the state, one from Washington, that strongly support it, and they're both Republicans and Democrats, and some of us are redneck independents. So, you know, there's broad support for this, and we were told by Congress to get together because the Forest Service in Congress has not, since Rare 1 and Rare 2, for 40 years, they promised us that they would decide which was wilderness, which was open for backcountry, and which would be open for development. It hasn't happened. So we were encouraged to do that. We have done it. And we thank you very much. I could talk for hours about this. This is a special place, and it cannot be lost to our heritage. And this is why it was called the Big Sky by A.B. Guthrie. So I thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ann Fleischke. I'm a graduate student at the University of Montana in Missouri.
Sharon, you hold my couple of clothes.
What's her name?
My name is Ann Fleischke. Are you starting over, sir? Okay. My name is Ann Fleischke. I'm a graduate student at the University of Montana in Missoula. I've written the Heritage Act up for my master's thesis. And let me just say, this is unique. Not only it is unique in Montana, it may be unique in the United States. My thesis chronicles Gene Sense and the Friends of the Front and the 30-plus years of attempts to support and protect the Rocky Mountain Front. And they maintain this collaborative process, keeping the front as it is. It's been a monumental effort. It astonishes me that it appears there have been statements made contrary to the facts of that effort. I wonder if those people know that the Montanans care about keeping the front as it is and not an industrial area. That would be incompatible with the area residents' uses of the National Forest. I wonder if they know what a conservation easement is, because that's what this law sets up. A massive conservation easement of 208,000 acres that keeps the uses as they are. This is not only unique, but as a legal structure, it may be unique. I attended the Augusta hearing last fall on this and watched a rancher rail against the federal government, anticipating his grazing rights were going to be kaput if this went through. He seemed not to grasp how a conservation easement works. This is even after a Wyoming rancher explained in that hearing how the Wilderness Society had helped him with continuing his work at grazing rights, even though they were already in a wilderness area. I tell you, I can't, I run out of time. This is astonishing, actually.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Richard Kenyon from Conrad, Montana. I'm a veterinarian over there, and I'm also a horseman that uses the wilderness. I'm opposed to the Heritage Act. I think we have enough federal government in our lives, and we don't need any more. The front is doing just fine under local administration. I don't believe we need any more wilderness under the current budget constraints that the federal government has for our wilderness areas. They're barely able to take care of the wilderness that we have, and I don't think that we need any more wilderness. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And thank you. I feel compelled to say, well, 2 minutes is the outside. Don't feel compelled to fill the 2 minutes. Thank you.
I tried to keep brief.
You did.
I'm Tom Solansky, and I have a Forest Service lease, and I bordered the Forest Service with my ranch. And for 50 years, we've been able to go in the forest with pickup or a four-wheeler and salt cows from fixed beds. And the last 2 years, the Forest Service has already put this act into effect. And he told me that I could not go in the forest with my four-wheeler to salt my cows or to check them. In order to do that, I would have to drive to Choteau, which is 40 miles, and plead with the forest ranger to get permission. And I'd have to tell him when I'm going, how long I'm going to be there, and what I'm doing, and when I come off. It would take me more time to drive to Choteau, get the permit, and go back home than it will to salt the cows. I have to do the same thing if I want a fixed fence. Some of the fence is not accessible from my side. We need this land for the last 50 years that I've been there. Has always been multiple use. People could use their snowmobiles, four-wheelers. We need to keep this as multiple use. That's all.
Great. Thank you.
My name is Scott Friskus. I live in Great Falls, and I want to start by thanking the Congressman and his staff for the opportunity to speak today. I came here today with my wife and my one-year-old son because I support the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act. And there's lots of reasons I support the bill, but that little guy is probably the biggest one right now. Our family owns a cabin up the Benchmark Road, and I've had the great privilege of exploring and enjoying the front for my entire adult life. Now as a new father, I want my son to have those same kind of opportunities. To grow up and live out his life experiencing the kind of Rocky Mountain front that I'm familiar with and that I know. I think the Heritage Act is our best chance of keeping the place intact and safeguarding all the different ways we interact with this really special landscape, whether it's through work or recreation or a little bit of both. I also support the Heritage Act because of the way it was put together. It originated with folks who are intimately familiar with this place, people who really know the country and know the communities. And I think the result of that is a really unique, one-of-a-kind piece of legislation that fits this one-of-a-kind place. I like the fact that along the way there have been lots of opportunities for public input. There have been a number of public hearings already. I've attended a few of those in Great Falls, in Augusta, and here in Choteau. And like everyone else here today, I've had the opportunity to add my 2 cents to the discussion. It's not that all of my ideas found their way into the bill, far from it. But that's okay. I appreciate the fact that I was listened to, and I really feel like my ideas were given due consideration. This bill has required some give and take on all sides. But because a lot of people were willing to do that, I think we ended up with a bill that makes a lot of sense for this place. Just in closing, I think Montanans, most of us are really tired of an all or nothing approach to solving our problems. And folks appreciate that people here were able to put aside their differences and find enough common ground to create this excellent piece of legislation.
I'm Sally Heiser, and I'm the current president of the Teton River Watershed Group. The Teton River Watershed Group is a collaborative, locally driven group of individuals, organizations, and agencies dedicated to the education and to the monitoring, improving, and maintaining the quality of the natural resources within the Teton River Basin. And I am addressing Section 7, which is the weed control, directs the BLM and the Forest Service to increase active management of noxious weeds and invasive species within the Rocky Mountain Front Management Area. And we have a letter of support. The Teton River Watershed Group would like to go on record supporting the Coalition to Protect the Rocky Mountain Front's proposed federal legislation to place a high priority on the prevention, eradication, and control of noxious weeds on the Rocky Mountain Front. Although the Teton River Watershed Group will not take a stance on other components of the federal legislation, we do feel supportive of the process and of the noxious weed component of this proposal. Since the founding of the Teton River Watershed Group organization in 1995, it has worked tirelessly to find common ground to control noxious weeds in the Teton Basin from the front to its mouth at Loma. The many successes achieved were only completed through the hard work of a large group of people from all walks of life. The proposed federal legislation is another tool to help improve this teamwork in controlling noxious weeds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Congressman Reberg. Thank you for spending your afternoon here in Choteau, listening to the people you represent talk about the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act. My name is Greg Schatz. My wife and I are fortunate to own a couple hundred acres southwest of town. We are members of the Backcountry Horsemen and the Montana Wilderness Association. I've been packing my horses on the front for the past couple of decades. I have covered all the country from Rogers Pass on the south to the Canadian line. The front is the wildest place left in the lower 48 and will remain wild in perpetuity with your help to pass this bill. As you know, the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act adds almost 60,000 acres to the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex. As a horseman spends many weeks a year packing in the wilderness, I wish more land would have been included in wilderness. But I also understand that a plan built by local representation needs to include everyone at the table, not just one user group. There needs to be give and take so everyone can agree on the plan. Several of my friends have worked on this plan for years and have shown me that this is a plan that everyone should support. I have seen the destruction of thousands of acres of rangeland in other areas of Montana because of the spread of noxious weeds. Nobody has taken the time or effort to initiate a program to eradicate the weeds. The Heritage Act addresses weeds by setting up a weed program so the federal and state land managers will work with private landowners to make sure noxious weeds don't infest the rangeland. This land is necessary to accommodate all of the wildlife that is in great abundance on the front, as well as to keep grass available for cattle so ranchers can continue to make a living. We've also seen the destruction of thousands of acres of land in Montana ripped up by irresponsible off-road use. The Heritage Act addresses this by allowing motorized use where it is already allowed and prohibiting its use in areas where currently it is not allowed. The beauty of this act is that it has conservation areas that will allow logging, chainsaw use, motorized use for ranchers and take care of their cattle, and the act still protects the beauty of the front. Also, I think that you should rescind H.R. 1505. It's had no public hearings here in town. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
My name is Greg Munther. I'm the chairman of the Montana Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. Some hunters are happy to shoot out an alfalfa field by stepping out of their pickup, and some fishermen are happy catching freshly stocked trout out of the pond. But backcountry hunters and anglers are different. For us backcountry folks, our love of the front means getting deep inside it. The more pristine part of the front are there our attraction, and further back is better. For us, the backcountry experience is more important, or as important, as filling a tag or a creel full of trout. We like to sweat. We like to climb a ridge or wade a stream until we are fall down tired. The harder it is, the better we like it. We like to hike the ridges, smell out fresh elk sign, and step in the tracks of the frizz. We like hearing bighorn rams butt heads and seeing the trails of migrating elk in the fading afternoon light. Or fishing a gurgling, crystal clear stream without having road dust settle over us. We understand the close tie between good habitat and all the fish and wildlife we love and pursue. We know that with 98% of the U.S., of the lower 48 of the U.S., within a mile of a motorized route, we've done that in the last 100 years, we treasure the front as a very rare landscape. We know that man keeps dissecting this habitat with more roads and motorized trails, wildlife, fish, and the backcountry experiences pay the price. Fortunately, as backcountry hunters and anglers, we can still experience the backcountry of the front much as the same as those who enjoyed it 100 years ago. And that is the point. This act is needed not to change anything, but to keep the front intact. We Americans seem more willing to squander our natural resources than to protect them. The Washington way seems to be to look at what we can exploit for money in the next 5 years, not what we will leave for our kids and grandkids. This time we want to leave something richer than money. We want you to help protect the front.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Waters. I'm Mayor of Shelby. I'm members of no coalition of anything. I'm in favor of this because I perceive it as a great shift in wilderness consideration. And I did the research. I was requested by some friends who were in support of this to look at it. And what Ms. Fleshman set up here in her report and her analysis, I really hope that she would get that out and let it be known because it provides a lot of facts versus rumors in relationship to this. So, because I came to the same conclusions as she did with probably not as thorough analysis as she did. The Montana oil and gas industry needs to realize that there are some places where you shouldn't drill. And in exchange for that realization, the process for them to drill on federal and state land should be streamlined. The balance of it, and made easier because they have to go through a terrible process to drill where it's okay to drill. So this is an example of a compromise and people working together to get things done that should help together. And that's what this act represents, and that's why I support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Reberg, for being here today, your staff, friends, and neighbors. Chuck Blickstrud, my wife Sharon, and I have owned and operated the 7 Lazy Pea Gas Ranch here along the Rocky Mountain front for the past 53 years. We raised our children there. We had a good life there. We grew up with this beautiful country in our back door, and we have had the pleasure of sharing it with literally thousands of folks throughout the country and the world during our lifetime here. I would like to take this time here today to speak in support of the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act. I remember back when people came together to pass into law the Lincoln Scapegoat Wilderness, and then in the late 70s when the Great Bear became an addition to the Bob Marshall Wilderness. The West Fork of the Teton and the high peaks that come off the divide from the Bob Marshall to the west should have been included in the Great Bear, but they were not. After having our property threatened in 1988 by Gates Creek Fire, and then again in 2007 by the Fool Creek Fire, I think that many believe that if it's in wilderness, there will be no action to suppress it. I don't believe that. As we housed and fed many of the firefighters at our ranch was the briefing area every morning in 2007 when much of the wilderness was burned, as was also the West Fork of the Teton. Their biggest fear was that this fire would move into an east-west drainage to where then a southwest wind would carry the fire out of the mountains. In that case, they worked hard to keep that from happening. We will have more fires in the years to come, that is a fact. So in these east-west drainages where they are threatening human populations and private lands and buildings, they will be doing everything they can to suppress them. Okay.
Nice hair. Sorry, guys, you get married this summer. So.
I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunities to speak here today. My name is Larry Salloway, and I live on the east slope of the Rocky Mountain front near the town of Cutbank. I have hunted, hiked, fished, and worked along the Rocky Mountain front my entire life. I am the son of Stuart Salloway, who was born at the old Blackfeet Agency on the Badger Creek in the year of 1928. His father, Abraham, was born at the Holy Family Mission School near Browning. Abe's father, Toussaint, was born in the North Country of Canada, just south of Edmonton in the province of Alberta. These people were called Métis, a French word meaning mixed, as these people were of both European and Native American Indian blood. My great-grandfather, Toussaint, was forced to flee his homeland of Canada because of his involvement in the armed resistance against the government of Canada. There were several of these confrontations over a period of years which were collectively known as the Riel Rebellion. Their leader, Louis Riel, who also fled Canada, became a Montana resident for a period of time and taught at the school at the St. Peter's Mission south of here. All of this history is recorded in the Joseph Kinsey Howard book, Strange Empire, which was written in his Métis-built cabin on the south fork of the Teton River, just a short distance west of this location. I feel that the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act will help to preserve and protect this most important history and culture of the Métis, Chippewa, Cree, and Blackfeet people who still reside in this area all the way from Augusta to Chief Mountain. I thank you again for the opportunity to speak and would like to encourage you to support the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act.
My name is Jim Posowitz, and I'm Montana Fish and Game retired, currently the Secretary of the Helena Hunters and Anglers. The public land portion of this area was passed into our custody because hunters, including Theodore Roosevelt and George Bird Grinnell, succeeded in getting legislation through Congress that enabled presidents to set aside land for conservation. The law enabled President Grover Cleveland to create the Lewis and Clark Forest Reserve in 1897. At the time, 19th century market hunters had purged our wildlife to near extinction. The restoration took time. When the U.S. Forest Service was new, a ranger left the following account of the wildlands that included the front. He wrote, "In the fall of 1905 and again in 1906, I rode for a month through the wildest part of that country with a rifle on my saddle, and with the exception of one goat, never saw a single big game animal." Since Koch's observation, we have experienced a century and 6 years of public and private commitment to land stewardship and wildlife restoration. 7 years after Koch's ride, the Montana legislature created the Sun River Game Reserve to start the wildlife recovery. That action extended protection to the grizzly bear 60 years before the Endangered Species Act. In 1931, Montana made the grizzly a game animal, so it might be protected and managed. The Endangered Species Act was still 42 years off. In 1940, U.S. Forest Service regulations designated the Bob Marshall, 24 years before passage of the Wilderness Act. In 1972, the scapegoat was added. In 1978, the great bear was added. A recent Helena Independent record described the result.
When Montana hunters and anglers wonder what awaits them in heaven, it's hard to imagine a place better than the Rocky Mountain front.
Congressman Reberg, I'm Jerry Jennings from Great Falls, and I'm a member of the Coalition to Protect the Rocky Mountain Front. Congressman, I received a letter from you on April 19th that said the health and preservation of America's treasure, our natural resources, must be a priority when developing management policies. It is important to preserve our public lands for a variety of uses, including recreation. And like you, I am concerned about Montana's wilderness areas. We have approximately 3.5 million acres of designated wilderness and over 6 million acres of roadless forest land in Montana. As we look to the future, we face difficult choices. How do we meet the demand for resources yet retain the aesthetic beauty of the land? How do we expand our tax base to meet the ever-increasing needs for good schools, hospitals, roads, and services without harming our environment? How do we balance the wants of recreationists, miners, loggers, developers, and conservationists? These are tough questions, and we must work together to solve them. Clearly, environmental protection and economic opportunity are interrelated. We must improve the management of our country's natural resources. I believe that we have time-tested, environmentally sound technology for extracting the resources of our lands without degrading the integrity of the environment. I also believe we can be stewards of our resources without halting economic development. And Congressman, I think this is the first letter that you've written to me that I actually agree with. And this is exactly what the Coalition to Protect the Rocky Mountain Front has been trying to do for the last 6 years. Work in collaboration with the people who live here, the people who are interested in preserving the land, the people who aren't interested in preserving the land. We look to the future. Times are changing. Montana is changing. All you have to do is look at the Gallatin Valley, the Bitterroot Valley. You know that times are changing. So in summary, I'm going to say that I hope that you don't ignore what we're saying today and that you do support us in protecting the Rocky Mountain Front. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today. Anyway, I'm Bob Hotchkiss, born and raised here for 59 years, and I opposed the Rocky Mountain Front Act. I didn't think it was too bad of a deal until I came to understand that there's a clause in there that the Secretary of Agriculture or Interior, at their whim, can just flat lock this whole thing up. And as I walked in today, I didn't see any horses or bikes out front. So apparently everybody drove. We might need some oil and some timber because one of the promoters of this that wrote the Rocky Mountain Front, I believe, lives in a big log house. So we might need a few logs out of there, and we might need some metals and whatever, but don't lock it up forever. I have never seen an act that has been revoked or reversed. So anyway, I would like to go down in opposition of this. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody that's hosting this event today. Appreciate it very much. My name is Wayne Chamberlain. I live in Helena. I'm a retired physician there. And I speak in favor of the Rocky Mountain Front. I hike and mountain bike and fish and do other activities here in this area with my family. This legislation is a product of a 5-year process of listening to all who participate. And as a result is a grand compromise to establish permanent categories of land use of all types, accomplished by cooperation, not conflict. This comprehensive legislation, and it's not so much to ask for some wilderness protection for a portion of the lands involved, for a permanent place of quietude, beauty, and ruggedness. This is not all about the people in this room. Very important. It's about the generations to follow us. People living here 100 years from now will want to hike, fish, hunt, and simply marvel at the scenery. We have a profound duty to consider the generations that follow us. Protection and respect for the Rocky Mountain Front has had broad appeal and support of many Montanans, Republicans and Democrats. That has been the case for many decades. A case in point is the Sun River Game Preserve that was established 100 years ago. And finally, there are some politicians and some citizens who have it wrong. In actuality, facts do matter. Facts are not irrelevant. There will be no new restrictions on motorized recreation and no changes in grazing leases. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Congressman Rayburg and the community of Choteau for hosting this. My name is Oliver Scary. I farm east of the ranch. I'm tired of dangerous cows kicking it around. We farm north of Chester, just south of the east view of the Sweetgrass Hills. I strongly support the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act for many reasons. Primarily, it is a product of an extensive collaboration effort by all the stakeholders. This is the first in this person's memory as to the preservation and use of public lands. The other reasons: it provides for continued cattle grazing, even in newly designated wilderness areas, of course following established grazing standards. It creates wilderness category in sensitive areas that need protection from uses that are not in the sustainable category. These areas shall be attached to two other long-standing wilderness entities. It allows harvesting of timber in areas where logging is sustainable. It calls for the elimination of roads once the logging is finished. It permits motorized use of trails where these were used before. It establishes a comprehensive weed control program that will prevent the spread of noxious weeds into the private land. One of the greatest reasons for this legislation is that it gets ahead of the curve of any development in the future which may challenge the integrity of the unique wild and beautiful area. It is almost impossible to mitigate damage or prevent further unsustainable development once resource extraction is in place. In my locale, we had a long 10-year campaign to prevent heap leach gold mining in the Sweetgrass Hills. This took place after the mining company proceeded with 2 building ventures, unannounced, I might add, accompanying erodible road and stream degradation. We then became very familiar with the General Mining Law of 1872, which gives mining the highest priority over all other uses. I say again, if we had something similar to the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act at that time, we could have saved much time and frustration, and the mining venture would not have lost a considerable amount of money and effort. And I'm asking you, Congressman Weaver, to support this bill. Thank you.
My name is Hal Herring. I live in Augusta with my family. I only represent myself and my family. I appreciate it for coming down, Congressman. I'm here. We live in one of the finest communities in the West, and it's a public-private partnership. We have some of the best ranch lands, and we have some of the most finely managed ranch lands, and then we have the public estate that we can hunt and fish on. For people like us who don't own great landscapes, we use the Rocky Mountain Front, and other thousands of hunters and fishermen can tell you the same. It's some of the best left in the whole world. And the motive of this, the Heritage Act, I believe, is to continue that public-private partnership in a very productive way and to try to save or to hold off some of the changes that we all see coming. We're going to be a net an exporter of natural gas by 2014 in the United States. We've got 100 million more people by 2050, I think it is. Change is coming. And what I hope to see is that we can guide that change in some way to keep the best of what we have. And I believe that the Heritage Act has a very good chance of doing that here on this part of the world. And I really appreciate you coming. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Congressman Greenberg. I'm Mary Sexton. I'm a third-generation landowner along the Rocky Mountain Front. I was a county commissioner here in Teton County for the last 7 years. I have been the director of the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation for the state of Montana. In fact, just yesterday I was out on an oil rig just west of the Sun State Trust Land. I think you know that as a nation and as a community, as a state, we need thoughtful oil and gas development. We also need thoughtful conservation and maintenance of those special places across the nation, in our state, and right here in our community. And I support the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act because it does just that. It maintains what we have here. It maintains the uses. It maintains the character of the landscape here along the Rocky Mountain Front, now and in future generations. It also tackles one of our greatest enemies, and that is noxious weeds, which I think is another of the very hard developed parts of this act that really does bring together that uncommon middle ground. I think you realize how polarizing today's politics are, here and in the nation's capital. And this is an exceptional effort because it does stake out that uncommon middle ground that folks have worked hard to agree upon. I urge you to take a look at the details of this act and the work that's gone into this act by people who have many different interests, but all appreciate the specialness of Rocky Mountain Front. It is uncommon middle ground. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Congressman Rehberg. I really appreciate you coming to Choteau to hear from your constituents and to get the facts about the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act, which I strongly support. I'm one of these damn newcomers. I've only been in Choteau since 1994. And there's two kinds of newcomers. There's the kind that come into an area to try to change it, and there's the kind that don't. And I'm proud to say that I'm part of that latter, more conservative group. And the reason that I support the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act is because of just that. It doesn't change anything. The bill is a classic, keep it as it is, status quo piece of legislation, very thoughtfully and carefully worked out by local people from the bottom up over these past 5 years. I've been part of that. I've been a member of the Coalition to Protect the Rocky Mountain Front that, in concert with local folks all up and down the Rocky Mountain Front, have worked out legislation that, once again, does not change anything from currently existing uses, be it livestock grazing, motorized recreation, mountain biking, hunting, hiking, backpacking. All of these activities will continue, and the good news is that thanks to this legislation, if enacted, those uses will continue unimpaired. So we really appreciate you coming here today and appreciate your thoughtful consideration of the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Keith Gibo, and I am lucky enough to have been born and raised in this great state. There's nobody, I would venture to say, that's sitting in these chairs that isn't here for primarily the exact same reason I'm here. We absolutely love this country, or we wouldn't be sitting here. It doesn't pay enough to live here. You live here because you want to live here. I also am not lucky enough to have had my ancestry farm and ranch out here on the front. They chose Lothair. Beautiful country, but dry. And my 5th generation ancestry are no longer there. They're gone. That country's still just as wild, and people typically aren't fighting about that, but they sure are fighting about the front here. And all of us love the front. I hear over and over again that the federal government is stealing our lands and grabbing our lands. First of all, we are only talking about existing federal lands. They are not grabbing any land, not a square foot. Okay? The other thing, whoever's shouting over there, I'd like to meet you outside so we can talk about this and have a good debate about this, but we don't have time right now. We're all fighting about the exact same thing. We absolutely love it here. This law does not change much of anything. I have to hunt and fish on public land because I don't own enough and I don't have enough money to buy enough of my own personal hunting preserve. My mom and dad have been here, and my dad wouldn't even take me hunting with a rifle, and he would make me bow hunt to begin with because of how precious the landscape is and hunting is. Somebody said earlier, it's not about filling the tag. It's not. It's about taking my daughter out so that she can have this hunting preservation. It's taking my granddaughter out, who's only 2 right now. I want her to be able to hunt in the same places I was at. I was in the Bob Marshall on horseback. My saddles are in my rig, by the way. I've got 5 guns in my rig. I'm a Republican. I love this country. I fear my government. But they've already got it. Let's make them handle it the way we want it handled. Thank you.
City, Montana. Thank you for allowing me to comment today. Although that is some distance from the Rocky Mountain front, we enjoy this area and use it several times a year. My first introduction to the Bob Marshall was from this side, the front country. From that time, I told myself I would do all in my power to protect this magnificent landscape. Many politicians say that more local involvement needs to take place. The Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act is just that. It was not the secret handshake, a wink of the eye type deal. It had full involvement of local folks. I would ask you, Congressman Rehberg, to lend your full support for the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act. Thank you.
That's a tough act to follow. That's my wife. My name is J.
I married my lawyer, I know.
My name is J.W. Westman. Lori and our children live in Park City, Montana. We are members of many conservation organizations, including I'm a state director of the Montana Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and Mr. Munther does have it right. The adventure does begin where the road ends. And, we aren't extreme anything. If we're extreme anything, we're extreme ordinary Montanans. And the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act is not conservative, it's not liberal, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat. It's the work of many local ordinary Montanans, simply upholding true Montana principles. It is a value that unites us. Having said my piece, I would ask you, Congressman Rehberg, to lend your full support for this local-driven effort, the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming, Senator Congressman Rehberg. It's a big agenda here. I'm Roy Jacobs. I was born and raised on the front. It's certainly a very special place, and I have no written testimony. I just speak from my heart, but I do have just a little phrase that I like to say, but I had to write this down or I forget it in front of the crowd. It says, the human spirit needs places where nature has not been rearranged by the hand of man. And this is truly one of those places. I will show you a map right now. I will show the whole crowd a map. You'd think we're trying to lock up the whole world. And in fact, it's this little green area right here. All the red spots are roads in Montana.
Hold it up, Roy.
We're talking about just a small fragment of land. I've been involved with the coalition since day one, and it goes back to wanting to protect this land since I was a little kid. I knew it was very special as a little boy. And I, like some others, would have liked to have more wilderness. But I'm completely satisfied with the compromises we've made. I feel it will not affect anybody's lifestyle that has lived here. We have done our best to preserve everything we have here. From grazing, we've never had logging, we've never had mining. It's really kind of a benign bill that will absolutely affect no one's life, including the grazers. I would rather have my grazing under the Wilderness Act because you're protected by the federal grazing guidelines than the way it is now. The ranger can just sign off and you're done. I could go on, but I won't. Thank you very much.
My name is Joanne Bernard. I farmed north of Great Falls. My husband's family farmed out by Carter since the beginning of the 1900s. I wasn't going to use this map, but I just thought it was a really good explanation for what I wanted to say also. I am in support of the Heritage Act, and because of the future of my children, my grandchildren, I want their human spirit to be involved in exploration and adventure and awesome ability to see the earth as it was and where we came from. This is the Heritage Act. This is about our heritage of the past. So anyway, I want to show you this. In 1971, my husband and I started outfitting in the Bob Marshall complex, and we've been all over it, had numerous different outfitting camps. But, as I said, we also farmed. And we farmed in this area right here. And as you can see, there's a mile every section. Every section, it's wheat and dirt and wheat and dirt, which is good. It gave us a living. But my kids absolutely love the Bob Marshall, and they grew up there. They've all moved away, but they can't wait till they can come back periodically, and who knows, maybe they will come back. But I am for the Heritage Act because this is about our heritage of the past. We must not forget who we are or where we came from. Thank you.
Congressman Reber, thanks for the opportunity. My name is Gabriel Fershon, and I work for the Montana Wilderness Association, and I'm very proud to work for the Montana Wilderness Association. We've been around for about 54 years, and we have about 5,500 members statewide. We've always been grassroots and will always be grassroots. I absolutely love Montana, and I love the Rocky Mountain Front. My family goes back 5 generations in Montana on my mother's side and 3 generations on my father's side. And my support for this bill comes through all those generations. And when I read a certain word in your press release, manufactured, you said that support for this bill was manufactured. That troubled me a little bit, because it implies that it's engineered or it's been arranged, that it's inauthentic. And I hope when you leave today you realize that support for the bill is very, very real, as you've seen here today. And it comes straight from the heart, and it comes from real Montanans. That's why we're wearing these stickers that say Made in Montana. So I just wanted to share those thoughts with you, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Rich Clough. Congressman Reber, thank you so much for coming to. As you can see, everybody's in total agreement on this issue. It's always nice to see. But the fact is, I think the biggest issue is change and the fear of change. And everybody doesn't want change. We've seen so much of it in the last 50 years. It's unbelievable. But on the front, it has remained fairly well intact. And this bill is intended to try and maintain that into the future. My grandkids are up there right now on the front, enjoying the day, and I wish I was with them. I will be shortly. But, I just think that this bill addresses that. It freezes in time that travel plan, which is a big issue which comes up and gets debated and fought over every 10 years. But this will address that and keep it there. The weed issue, of course, everybody, I think, is finally getting an understanding of. The wilderness, yes, there's an addition to the wilderness, and not much when you can, consider the intent of the whole bill. And I really feel that it deserves your support on this issue, and I'm hopeful that you'll help it out in the House section. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Reber, members of the audience, thank you. My name is Thomas Kilmer. I live in Helena, Montana. I'm a native of Montana. When I was young, my grandmother, Hazel Kilmer, was an early member of the Montana Wilderness Association. She hiked and backpacked and loved this wild Rocky Mountain country. She was doing that well into her 70s. She turned that love of wild country over to me. I learned to backpack and hike in the Rocky Mountain front of this great wild country. When my wife and I had kids, we spent many weekends, weeks in the summer backpacking with them in this great wild Rocky Mountain country. I now have a granddaughter, and she was 5 years old. My wife and I took her backpacking into roadless areas along the Rocky Mountain front. We took her again last year when she was 7. She currently lives in Nebraska, where they've got about that much wilderness, wild country, maybe less than that. She's coming up to visit this summer, and I hope to take her backpacking again into the Rocky Mountain front, into the backcountry. And I hope to be able to do that many years to come. I think the protection by the Rocky Mountain Front Heritage Act will ensure that, to protect that wild country. I support the act completely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Reber, my name is Chris Marchand. I'm representing the Anaconda Sportsman's Club today. We're in support of the Heritage Act. A number of our members use this landscape. I personally have hunted mule deer on Deer Mountain and bighorn sheep in Hannah Gulch. We also like to support solutions to these kinds of issues that have broad and diverse local support, and that's what we see in this. I would disagree with those that don't think there's a need for this bill. These lands that are under question here have been mostly protected and managed under roadless management. And you never know when someone in Washington would want to come along and remove those protections without this type of a listening session. We also see that these lands have great economic benefit for us. Outdoor recreation contributes over $2 billion of economic activity to us annually in this state. And this section of landscape up here makes a great contribution to that $2 billion. I know that my family, the most expensive and most memorable vacation that we ever took was a 10-day pack trip in the Bob Marshall. And I would hope that those opportunities exist in the future. But in order for us to manage these lands properly, we've got to solve these divisive issues that we have now so that we can move on with certainty and provide the type of management that we need. And there's one other challenge I think that stands out there that no one's talked about, and that is the Forest Service. In the 12 years you've been in Congress, we've seen the challenges to the Forest Service grow. And yet, their budget is such that they have a 40% reduction in their staff. And we need to get a properly funded Forest Service so that we can manage our funds properly. If we can find $4 and $5 billion to give to Exxon and the oil companies as subsidies, we can find $1 billion more for the Forest Service.
Hi, Congressman Reber. My name is Steve Wadsworth. I grew up about 18 miles south of town here. I'm not fortunate enough to live quite here anymore. I live in Great Falls. I'm president of the Charlie Russell Backcountry Horsemen that's there. We've got about 60 members. We spend quite a bit of time working on trails in the backcountry and all of that kind of thing. You know, probably you're familiar with the Backcountry Horsemen. But I'm also in favor of what these ranchers are talking about. You know, if these guys end up the way society is now, it's harder and harder for them to make a living. Probably everybody around here knows there's one place up here owned by a pretty famous talk show host. Those kind of places get locked up. And we want to keep this open for people like my kids and all of those generations that are yet to come. So I ask your support for this bill.
Thank you.
I'm Ralph Knapp. I really appreciate you coming here. It's really great for me. I am a member of the Montana Wilderness Association, but I'm really at the mic here because I speak for myself, and I think I have actually a unique concern. I haven't heard it expressed here. But I actually have two concerns, so I'll start with something else. First thing is, I have noticed the extreme degradation of those places where I, as a child, spent my childhood. You know, like Little Canyon and so on. And I see it as a trend, and I see it as a trend that has been accelerating. That brings me to my second point, and actually in this particular situation. I speak as a geologist. And this concern was also expressed in the Billings Gazette, I guess Wednesday, in their editorial. That has to do with protection of the Missouri River headwaters. I mean, I think the trend puts them in peril, and I think we need to protect it. So, and I support this. I support the Heritage Act, and I would not support it if I really thought it was going to cause harm to anybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, Congressman Reber. My name is Shannon Downey. I'm from Kalispell. I'm not a native Montanan, though I did grow up on a ranch that was 16 miles from the nearest town. And actually, the elevation was higher than the population of the entire county. So that's sort of. I've been a student of ecology for about 30 years now, mostly studying after the last glaciation and the last couple hundred years in the West. And I just want to say, anybody who thinks that this country has not changed in the last 150 years has not looked at the evidence. It has changed enormously, and it's going to continue to change enormously. I would urge you to support this bill because the Rocky Mountain front is going to be changing. And we know that. Most of the private surface land has already been leased up by the oil companies. We've got a 160-acre manufacturing facility that's going in just south of Bynum. It's going to change, folks, and I think we need to hang on to the best of the last pieces that we've got. And I would also encourage the local communities to direct the development that's going to come, because it's going to come, folks. And if you don't manage it, you don't manage you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Reberg, my name is Orrin Knowlton. My granddad came here in 1885 and started a cow ranch up along the mountain front. They talk about the Forest Service never changing. He ran cattle on the Forest Service before there even was one, and then finally we lost it, which is beside the point. How much is enough? I'm a firm believer, by gosh, that they're not trying to save it for us. They're trying to save it from us. It states on the first amendment of the Constitution, each article of the federal government it's unconstitutional to own any land for very long periods of time by the government. Whatever. But if it ain't broke, why fix it? I'm dead set against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tom Farrakhan from Conrad, Montana, former resident of Victor, Montana, in Bitter Valley. And I'm here to tell you I'm a survivor of things like the Heritage Act, the power and the promises of preservation. I watched the fires that devastated all of western Montana because of the power and promises of wilderness acts, both literally and figuratively, my business, my home. And Mr. Reeves, Congressman Reber, I would ask you, as you consider this bill, as you travel western Montana, and all of you others who have a chance to do it, start at Eureka and go to Darby and see what the charred sacrifice that people have made in the west side of Montana because of the power and the promises of things such as the Heritage Act. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Congressman Reber. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Jennifer Ferris, and I live in Missoula. And I've been working with folks in the coalition since about 2003. And I've never met a finer bunch of people or been in a finer town than Augusta, Choteau, Puyar, Bynum, all the towns up and down here. The coalition has held 8 meetings. We took some hard knocks in Augusta, but we went in there and met with people and let everybody speak. We work very hard to make those meetings open, and we thank you for continuing on in that tradition. So thanks very much. I'm also keeping track of what people say and the questions that have come up. Land acquisition, if that came up as an issue in the language of the bill, the power of the Secretaries of Interior and Agriculture. And we pledged to look at those issues, and we would really like to do it with your help. Have you take a look at line by line with us. Since 2004, members of the coalition have written you and your staff, and we've gotten wonderful, yeah, we'll get back to you, and we have met with Mike Waite, we've seen you at some functions, but we've never really had that chance to sit down and talk through this bill. We started in 2004, before there was ever even a true concept of the bill, while we were still talking about travel planning and oil and gas and other issues. We said, let's talk about how to shape Montana, how to shape the Rocky Mountain Front as a group. And you are certainly, because you are a member of Congress and you're a part of the state and part of this discussion, we want you at that table. And so I want to thank you again. I have here 7 letters that we've written you since 2004 requesting a time to meet with you. And now we'll make another request to go through this bill line by line. This bill doesn't, our intent, and if it's wrong, we will change it, is not to increase the power of the federal government. It's not to change significantly the way people make their living off this land. That's the pledge of the coalition. Gridlock, we want gridlock broken. And we know we can't please anybody and everybody, but we know that with your help, we can make it better. Thank you.
Welcome, Denny. I'm Ronald Reese, and I've been a businessman in Conrad for the past 30 years. My wife and I are avid horsemen. We ride Forest Service and lots of wilderness. Our first wilderness trip was in 1977, 15 years ago. Highway 2 at the summit at Morrison Creek to Swift Dam. We typically now do 2 to 4 wilderness trips a summer. 3 years ago, we made a lifelong commitment with my riding buddy here, Bob Hermans, and we reserved Labor Day weekend for our grand finale of the year pack trip. A 10-day wilderness trip for as many years into the future as long as we were still able to get into the saddle. 3 years ago it was the Bob Marshall and Chinese Wall. Last year was the Scapegoat at Half Moon Park. This year we're going to do the Danaher. Montana currently has almost 3.5 million acres of wilderness encompassed in 5 separate wilderness units across the state. Wilderness is public lands, but the majority of the public are not using it or able to use it due to the wilderness restrictions. Only the horsemen and the hikers are using this wilderness. We use wilderness very much, way more than most. It would be impossible for us to experience a fraction of all the Montana wilderness has to offer in a lifetime. Each year during our many wilderness experiences, we continually see escalating trail deterioration, nearly impassable bridges, and trails closed due to lack of maintenance. The Forest Service hasn't got the budget and manpower to maintain the acres of wilderness it currently has. Why add more wilderness? Once land is dead, that'll be it. No more wilderness.
Congressman Reber, thank you very much for being here today. I wanted to thank, first of all, the families that have been here in this area for over 150 years. We'll speak about that in a second. My name is Bill Hallinan. I represent myself, and I'm also president of the Wildlife chapter of the Montana Wilderness Association, and representing 550 families and individuals in the Lewis and Clark County-wide area. So for myself, I'm a taxpayer in Lewis and Clark County for 35 years. I like to keep my taxes low, less development in that area. For MWA members who recreate, live, pay taxes in this area, also we'd like to see the wilderness characteristics of these areas in this bill stay that way. We have lost members in the Wildlife chapter because we're not asking for more wilderness. I think what's been left out is 300 million Americans. This is their land. This is a federal policy about federal land that we're really talking about. I think also, I just want to express that the best day of my life was on the Jack Salmon Ranch. One one day I got to walk around on that beautiful ranch, and it hurts me that I don't have access to it because Jack doesn't live there anymore. And I think when I think about the neighbors in this room, that probably hurts the most, being locked out of parcels that you used to be able to go across. Ask Jim Lee in Augusta. I think he'd say he used to ride his horse directly any direction he could get there. But we no longer know one another as neighbors, and I would hope through this process we could begin to develop good land policy, because times are changing. This is federal policy on federal land, but it's also more how we get along with each other as neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Weaver. My name is Mark Henderson. I live here in Choteau. I had no intention of speaking today. Some made me get up and talk, but my family moved here to Montana in 1864 as they moved into the Gold City. Anyhow, built the gold mines. So mining brought me here, but that's my family here. But also I want to say I'm president and chief CEO of the Henderson Outdoor Group, my family. If we think and can trust the federal government to leave this bill alone and not change anything, we're mistaken. You can look back at Social Security, you can look back at income tax. Income tax was never designed on the individual people. They changed the words around, a stroke of a pen. We saw it with the Badger 2 medicine. Somebody who's not accountable to the public can do whatever they want. They're not voted in positions with the Secretary of Interior, the Secretary of Agriculture. At the whim, things can change. And I've heard that on both sides, and that is true. But if we're going to put our full faith in the federal government, you're there, you see what happens every day. If you want your full faith in what the federal government's going to tell us to do, be careful what you wish for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dave Fixler. I have to admit I'm only a third-generation Montanan in this area. However, my mother turned 100 years old yesterday, and she was born and raised about 15 miles from here. I just wanted to say that I think that, like so many things, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I think for the most part, this has been a wonderful effort to try to accommodate Roundup efforts to do that. However, it bothers me, the devil's always in the details. And like Mark so eloquently said, the stroke of a pen by someone who's not accountable to the voters can change the entire meaning of this bill. If this is going to truly represent us, the bill needs to be changed in such a way that not only can the part be struck where the Secretary of the Interior or Agriculture not have that power per se, but needs to be specifically listed in the bill itself to say this bill can only be changed by a full vote of the Congress or something similar, something where we do have some input. I think that's probably the most important single problem I have with the bill, and I think that it's a very important one. Thanks.
Thank you. I see that people continue to join the line. I'm going to end it at the gentleman that's standing up there now. And it's just a time commitment that I have. I was supposed to move on at 4, but I'm going to notify the staff. We're going to stay a little bit longer, and I would like to finish the row of people. But if you're not in the line now, I apologize. Please feel free to get me information for the record. I'm happy to have that. I just eventually have to shut it off somewhere. So the gentleman, the two that just got up and got in line, you'll be the last two. Sir.
Hey, Congressman Reberg, my name is Rod Willis from Helena, Montana, and I'm not a native Montanan. In 1975, I transferred to the Teton Ranger District as one of the Forest Service foresters, and have loved this community and this land since 1975. The key to this act is it sets up a framework, a direction on how to manage the land. And the framework is to maintain it as it is. So thank you for the civil dialogue that's here today, and thank you for your staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congressman Reber / Senator candidate Reber, welcome to Choteau.
Where have you been? I haven't seen you all year.
Okay. We could go ahead and joke around about the groupie thing, but we'll just get right into this. I have been following these issues for a long time, as you know, and I'm wearing a pin that says no more wilderness. I see folks wearing Made in Montana. I wish I knew that's where I could get one on Made in Montana, because I too am Made in Montana. And I'm here today to say that this has been in operation for 5 years. It has been ongoing. There have been some public meetings, but there's been an agenda, and it's been moving forward at its own pace behind the scenes. Congressman, we followed Senator Tester's bill for 2 years. You required 3 things to be in that bill for you to support it. They weren't there. After 2 years, you finally came out and said no. We implore upon you to come out and look at this closely, look at the agenda, look at the legacy program that's coming forward, and on behalf of Lewis and Clark Conservatives and the people of Montana, drill baby drill, log baby log, and graze baby graze.
I think he meant Made in Montana a different way than you guys did. Just saying. Ask him.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Tatsey. I'm a member of the Blackfeet Tribe, and we've been here forever. I actually chair a committee for the tribe. It's working with the Badgers Medicine, with Forest Service, and I've been working with the coalition since 2002. And it's this heritage, we work with them on this Heritage Act, and we do support it. It helps, just protect and preserve the area from our future generation, our kids, our kids. And that's one thing that we've always sustained and managed resources here, and keep them as natural as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Leah Whitford, and I too am a tribal member of the Blackfoot Tribe. I'm also a Métis. My family members are buried up in the Rocky Mountain front on my Métis side as well as my Blackfeet side. And I've brought my children down to this area for a number of years, and I want to continue to do that, and I want future generations to be able to come down and experience this great area. So I support the Heritage Act.
I'm Burton Ginter. I live down on the Fairfield Bench. I'm completely opposed to this bill, primarily because establishing any more wilderness is against what you don't protect it, you sign it up to be burned. Just look at how much wilderness has been burned in the last 20 years. Just about all of it. I used to take and like to go back into the Sun River area. Since it's been burned, I'm not going to go in there. You want to take and bring wilderness to the front so they can burn in and then burn out all the ranchers. To say that this is a coalition bill is a bunch of bunk. You've done it behind our backs and still are doing it behind our backs. You line up here so nobody else can talk. You're a bunch of baloney.
I think that's enough.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Tim Aldrich.
president of the Montana Wildlife Federation, which is an organization of 24 affiliates and about 7,000 members at this time. When we talk about the fund, often we talk about it as the Serengeti of North America in terms of the wildlife research. And I think that's something that sticks to all sportsmen in this state and well beyond this state. So I think that it's a great opportunity, I guess, to keep what's here. And I think there are two other great opportunities involved with this. One is certainly the noxious weed. That is one of the hugest problems we have in terms of the habitat for all the things that get down on the ground and eat the grass. And this has an inroad into that. And I think the other thing that's important is the conservation management areas. Here, the first time in my experience, we have something that's legislatively protected that's not wilderness. And it does preserve a way of life that's here, that's valued by so many people. You need to keep it. So I encourage you to strongly support this act. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Congressman Reber. Thank you everyone for showing up. My name is Mike Menke. I'm from the Flathead Valley. I'm president of the Montana Wild Sheep Foundation. I came today to show support for the Heritage Act. We're all about putting and keeping wild sheep on the mountain. We're a conservationist group, and we believe in multiple use. We also work hard at trying to get rid of noxious weeds, so this blends in very well with our program as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Debbie Briscoe, and I'm from the Fairfield Bench area. The first thing I would like to say is I really admire the gentleman who got up and pointed out that constitutionally the federal government is not allowed to have any property except those which are for maintaining its enumerated powers, which are protecting our life, liberty, and property. We have a heritage in this country of a federal system, which means the federal government had a set of specific limited powers. Other powers were designated to the state or to the people. Okay, that said, that is our heritage. I would also like to remind people here that the last 100 years, progressives had created a new heritage in this country of breaking treaty after treaty and promise after promise. I would like my Native Americans to remember how well the federal government kept their treaties in the past. I don't think they'll do a much better job adhering to the Heritage Act unless some changes are made. Private property, they say this belongs to 300 million Americans. We will pay for this we will pay for this property. We have paid for this property with our lives and with our taxes. Yet private property law says that if you have private property, you must have clear title to that property. You must be able to own, you must be able to control and have reasonable access to that property, and you must be able to dispose of that property as you wish. This does not exist. This is what they really mean when they say this land belongs to the people. This belongs to the state. The state controls it, not the people. The state has title to it. The state decides who and what will get to do what with it. And those who are the biggest lobbyists get the best favors to use the property.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Congressman. We're off the mic. Good afternoon, Congressman. Thank you very much for attending. My name is Ken Donovan, and I was raised in Blair. Presently live in the Swan Valley, which is Missoula County. Those of you that are aware of things in Missoula County, we were kind of taken over by the Montana Heritage Act. Now, I'm not advocating one side or another in this particular one. We do have an interest on the east front, but I just wanted to shed a little light on some of the unintended consequences of what happened to us. Now, this may not happen here. I've got a lot of friends around here, and I would hope that that cooler heads would prevail in what we were dealing with. One telling number is our school enrollment in 2000 in the Swan Valley was 100. Today it's about 32. What followed after the Heritage Act that was heavily funded by tax dollars was that it was followed up by a mass of non-government organizations. Nature Conservancy, Vital Ground, you can just go down the list. They have tied up thousands more acres, and just 2 days ago the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service came in and said they want another 5,000 acres out of our private property land base. Right now we're down to less than 7% of what we had. And that's not a lot for growth. We're losing our young people, our economy, we're dying down there. We're bleeding to death. So I guess if I had to say anything, keep the communities vested. This was put on us very quickly, not a lot of transparency, in fact hardly any until right at the end, and it was done. It sounds like you guys have put in a lot of time, and just keep your eye on the ball and really wish the very best for everyone.
Hello. Relax. Oh, hold it close. Okay, my name is Stuart Lewin. I'm an attorney in Great Falls, Montana. I've been practicing there for 40 years. I'm mostly doing business and estate planning, tax work. And these are special places here. They're very important. And I've been very fortunate to live this close to these places. When I was stronger, I was able to spend more time in them. But whether I'm there or not, it doesn't matter. The important thing is that they stay wild. I'm also a member of a group called Missouri River Citizens, which is trying to keep the Missouri River as clean and as full as possible. Water is our future, not oil, in my opinion. And the water rises out of the Rocky Mountain front. Is extremely important to us. And the impact of people on that adversely affects the quality of that water and the amount of that water. It is very important, if you're looking for our future, that you do what you can to preserve that area. Preserving it means controlling people. The land itself will do just very fine by itself. But the question is, how do we control ourselves? A lot of people are complaining about government. The government are us. If it's not good enough, we should do something about it because we are the ones that are involved in doing it. I'm hopeful that you will work with these people to make this act even stronger. I hope that you will recognize the importance of this area and do what you can, encourage everybody to do what they can. If you're going to have economic development, it can be someplace else. This area here will actually promote economic development.
I want to compliment you, Aaron. You did really well until you gave up the mic on the last speech. Good job. Thank you, Randy, for your bell, and Mike for taking copious notes. As you notice, I don't take notes because I do want to engage in conversation. Of course, my mind is swirling, and that probably shocks some of you. But I've heard a lot of information, and I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you and open up the lines of communication and the dialogue on something that's very important to the people of Montana. As one speaker said, we did engage in the one piece of legislation introduced by Senator Tester, and we saw some things within the legislation that were promising, other areas that maybe created problems, and we made some recommendations to this point which have not been accepted. But I want to take a look at this legislation as well and work with people to see if there's some things we can do. One of the areas, as an example, when it says at the back of the bill, authorized and appropriated. You can pick it up and put it in the pocket, I know. I just want to warn you, you may not get what you think you're getting or want to get. If you set up a management of noxious weeds, which I think we're all for. I didn't get here as soon as the Blackfeet, but my family got here in 1863. And so I think I have a pretty good understanding of noxious weeds and our desire to control noxious weeds. And it's something I'm particularly interested in, that when the legislation talks about authorized and appropriate the funds necessary to do this, don't fall for that, because there is no appropriation included in the bill. Unless there's a dollar figure in the bill, there's no guarantee. And so I want you to know, and whoever said the devil was in the details, I always tell the story about my dad, who was actually a short order cook. All the years I was growing up, my dad had a restaurant. If any of you were from the Billings area, it was called the Milky Way. It was across from Eastern Montana College. So my dad cooked from 5 in the morning till 5 at night, 7 days a week. My grandma took over at 5 at night and cooked until 1 in the morning and shut down. And I always tell the story about my dad had a little sign down in the bottom corner of the window that said, T-bone, 25 cents. With meat, $15. The devil always is in the details, and for those of you who take the position that it doesn't change anything within the legislation, I want you to know that I'll be looking at it from the perspective of, does it change anything or does it not? Does it protect those interests? Because I heard a lot of people say, this doesn't change anything, and so I got a flavor from the audience that you want to make sure that it doesn't change anything, whether it's the preservation of the properties that will be included in the wilderness, or the grazing protection for the ranchers. That would be an important point, is where is the protection and maintaining or making sure that the bill is written as those of you who stood up either for or against, or just raising questions. Is the bill written the way you think it ought to be? Does it do what you intended to do? Because, again, as one of the speakers said, there is an unintended consequence that we always have to think about. Because if I'm going to put my name on a piece of legislation, or if I'm going to vote for it or against it, I want you to know exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that you're getting what you think you're getting. Otherwise, I haven't done my job as your representative in Washington. So I want to thank you all for coming out on a Saturday and a lovely day. I know everybody has 24 hours of the day. I actually tried to introduce legislation one year to add a 25th hour. I couldn't find a co-sponsor. Nobody was interested in 25 hours a day. So I know you're all busy. You've all got things to do. But it means a lot to you to be here today to state your position to me. And it means a lot to me to have you come out and look me in the eye, give me your best recommendation, and then ultimately hope that I make the best decision as your representative in Washington. So again, thank you for all coming out today.